Hello everyone and welcome back to DevOps Impact Journey. As DevOps Impact engineers, it's very important that we understand, at least on a very high level, how authentication and authorization mechanisms work, some of them, and how they can be used to protect our systems and our users' privacy. So in this video, I'll walk you through a simplified explanation of a new IETF, Internet Engineering Task Force draft specification called Selective Disclosure for JSON Web Tokens, or SD-JWT, for authentication and authorization works. That's a lot of words in a sentence, but it's simpler than it sounds. So let's dive in. First, for anyone not familiar with JWT, let's go through a quick intro. JWTs are base64 URL encoded tokens that are sent by a server as part of a JSON response to a client after their authentication. The token includes certain claims about the authenticated user, such as username, ID, their role, and permissions to interact with a certain API on their server, etc. This token is then encrypted by the server, in other words, the issuer, and sent to the client. The client stores this token and uses it on each subsequent request to prove their identity or their authorization to use a particular service. In another scenario, sometimes the client may need to pass a JWT to a third-party verifier in order to prove their identity exists in the issuer or the server. For example, proving to a social media site that you do in fact have a Google account. So in this example, you would log into Google, grab the JWT and pass it to the social media account. Of course, this is the famous sign in with Google or sign in with LinkedIn, etc. button on sites you've used before. These mechanisms are handled for us in the background, so we don't have to pass JWTs manually. This mechanism that uses JWTs is part of an OIDC authorization code flow. So that's basically JWTs or JWTs, but they have some limitations. So one of the key ones being that all of the claims about the user, like the username, their physical address, their role in the server, etc., are encapsulated in the same JWT. So if you send this JWT to a third-party verifier that only needs to know about your username, for example, then the site can also see the rest of the information in the JWT, which is very bad for privacy. So this is where selective disclosure for JWTs or SD-JWT solves this problem by enabling the user to send only a few claims required by the verifier. To implement this, the server sends each claim as a separate list of hashed disclosures inside the JWT. The server also sends a separate list of plain text disclosures to the client. So when the client receives these, they can decide to send only one or more disclosures to the verifier. They do this by sending the entire JWT, now called SD-JWT, with the hashed disclosure and a copy of the plain text disclosure they wish to disclose to the verifier. The verifier then uses the plain text disclosure, hashes it and matches it with one of the disclosure hashes inside the JWT. This way the verifier can verify the plain text disclosure or claim sent by the user or the client without knowing the rest of the hashed disclosures. The rest of the hashed disclosures are cryptographically secure and not technically feasible to be dehashed by the verifier. So how can we use this to maximize our DevOps impact? So one of the simplest use cases is continuous integration and deployment, or CI/CD pipelines. In a CI/CD pipeline, various stages might require different pieces of information about a user or a system. Using SD-JWT, you can selectively disclose claims relevant to specific pipeline stages, ensuring that you only share necessary information to the system, reducing the risk of information leakage. For example, let's say you have a three-stage pipeline: build, test, and deploy. So for build, the system may only need information whether the DevOps engineer has permission to run the build. For test, the system might need additional info on the engineer's permission to run the test. And for the deployment, the system might need the engineer's level of authorization to deploy to a particular environment. This way, we've minimized the information leakage about the DevOps engineer through the pipeline and maintained a high level of security and privacy. So in conclusion, selective disclosure for JSON Web Tokens is a powerful specification that enables users to have better control over the disclosure of their claims with JWTs. It's important to note that it is still an internet draft of the IETF and may soon become a widely adopted specification across the web. And as a DevOps impact engineer, you are now hopefully equipped to adapt it when it becomes official. With that, I hope you enjoyed this video, and I will see you in the next one. Bye now.